Hello everyone, welcome to Pokédex, the channel where I build decks for the Pokemon trading card game. Today I'm going to be reviewing Ancient Origins. I know I'm kinda late to the party, a lot of people have already done that, but if you like to listen to my opinions on the cards, well, here it is. Better late than never, right? And actually this is the first time that I actually play tested the set a little bit before I review it, so I have some opinions on some of the cards because I already played with them. Plus, I'm going to try to be extra quick, not to take you guys a lot of time. So I'm just going straight to the point, and I'm going to jump right into the cards. First one, Vileplume. A lot of people have been hyping it, especially because it's kind of similar to an old Vileplume that was played some time ago. I wasn't around when that happened, but I guess the meta wasn't really what it is today. I don't think this card is going to be that good. Item lock is definitely powerful, but this one is symmetric in that it affects the opponent at the same time as the same way it affects yourself. So you kind of have to build around it. And if you build your deck around having a very low count of items, you are shooting yourself in the foot because you won't be able to assemble the Vileplume that quickly or as quickly as you can. So I've kind of tried a couple of different configurations. I think the way it works best is if you have the items anyway and you kind of go for the Vileplume for extra support in the later stages of the game, especially when you have Pokemon that, I don't know, paralyze or something, and you just make it so your opponent cannot play items to get out of that, and you just keep hitting them turn after turn. I think that's where Vileplume works the best. Alright, next card. Gyarados. So Gyarados, pretty interesting in that it poisons both active Pokemon. If your Pokemon is grass, it's not poisoned. I think this will be really interesting, especially in decks where the 10 extra damage are really important, because having a stage 1 that guarantees 10 extra damage, I think that's fine, especially if you're in a grass deck where your Pokemon do not take those 10 extra damage. If not, if the 10 damage end up not making any difference, if the math doesn't work out, well, sorry, no dice. But of course we can also play Gyarados with Verbank in Expanded, so a card to keep in mind, of course. Vespiquen, the good one. I'm not going to be looking at the other one. This thing is an upgrade from Flareon, actually. The type is better and the support is better right now. Plus it has an awesome attack, which is the first one, Intelligence Gathering, and the free retreat, which Flareon did not have, although it does lose 10 HP, which I don't think will be that relevant if the opponent is going to knock it out in one hit anyway, so whether it had 100 or 90 HP. So yeah, I think this card is actually one of the strongest Pokemon in the set, and also one of my favorite. The support makes it so that this card is really good. We have Hoopas, we have the, not Hoopas, sorry, Unknown, and the EV Illusions that we will get to in a second, which make this deck, I think, pretty interesting. So yeah, keep in mind Vespiquen. I think this card is definitely going to be seeing play. I feel like it's a really powerful non-EX attacker. Flareon, so this is the only evolution that I'm going to be showing. There's also Jolteon and Vaporeon, so they all have the same type of ability in that they share their type with all the other stage 1s that you have in play. So if you have a Vespiquen will be both fire and grass. That's really cool. So he hits the opponent for weakness. Of course, it can also hit the opponent for resistance. But yeah, the Jolteon and Vaporeon, actually, there are Pokemon with resistance to lightning and resistance to water a lot of times. But I don't think I've ever seen a Pokemon resist fire, so at least in recent expansions. So yeah, I think Flareon is just upside, plus there's Blacksmith, and I think the combo is really interesting. And actually I have a very interesting Vespiquen deck to show you guys, which features Flareon and Blacksmith for later, for the later stages of the game where we want to get some energy back. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, so just talking about Flareon, which is a really interesting card. The ability is really good in stage 1 decks. We got an Entei here, which has an interesting Burning Roar attack, which allows you to discard top 4 cards of your deck. If you are playing a deck that wants to discard cards, this is interesting, like the Vespiquen deck that we just talked about. And if you find fire energy cards, you can attach them to your Pokemon any way you like. So this is a really interesting Pokemon, and plus the second attack is not that bad either. Combat Blaze is actually the same attack that the Plasma Absol had, and Plasma Absol kind of had some play to it. This one is a little bit more expensive because the energy, both energy have to be fire types, but a lot of decks don't mix energy at all. So yeah, Combat Blaze, really good attack. So Entei is a solid card, I think. We got a second Entei in here. It has the Theta double ancient trait, which allows this Pokemon to have Pokemon tool cards attached to it. As we will see, this is a really interesting ancient trait in that it's not only upside. I mean, it's 100% upside in non-EX Pokemon, but if you're playing EXs that have Theta double, and there's one, the opponent can stick head ringers on your Pokemon, and that kind of sucks. So we'll get to that in a second, but this one, you can, if you imagine the perfect scenario where you just attach a couple of muscle bands or a couple of hard charms to this dude, and then you attack, and the attack works well with both muscle band, and the first one, I mean, works well with both muscle band and hard charm, in that if you have a muscle band, of course, for only 2 energy, you're dealing more damage. So if you have a couple of muscle bands, you can deal 70 damage for just 2 energy, which is decent. And then if you have 2 hard charms, the effect on the attack means that the opponent deals 30 less damage to yourself. So if you have a couple of hard charms in there, it's less 70 damage that you're taking. So that's really interesting. This Pokemon, I can see it definitely being played, but I kind of feel like you need the perfect deck for it, where you play a lot of tools. So if it's only in a random deck where you stick an Entei in, I don't think it's going to be that great, but if you're building around it somehow, or building around tools, I think it's definitely interesting. We have a Volcarona. It's a stage 1. It's not a half-hard one, so this one does not have an ancient trait, but this is actually probably my favorite card in the set. Sunbirth is a really interesting attack. For a single colorless energy, you search your deck for a basic, you put it in your bench, and then you search your deck for a couple of basic energy and you attach to that Pokemon. I'm definitely going to build around this card. I think it has a lot of potential. It's kind of similar to Excadrill. I really love that card as well. I don't think it was really strong, but it was interesting, and I had a blast building around it. And this is the same type of card. I don't think it's going to be, probably not even tournament viable, because the effect is strong, don't get me wrong, but you kind of have to evolve into a stage 1 before you can use it. So that kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. The turn that you lose evolving and playing an energy on it, you could just, I don't know, play an Ultra Ball for the basic Pokemon that we are talking about, and just sticking an energy on it instead of the Volcarona. So yeah, I don't think this is actually that great, but if, I don't know, we're playing some sort of toolboxy kind of deck, maybe, and that's probably what I'm going for with this card, but yeah, we'll see. There's a Gyarados that's interesting, and it's actually, I think, the pre-release card. I don't think it's that strong, but I do think it has a fun deck. So if you play a lot of Magikarps, well, you can only play 4, but if you play Magikarps with Team Magma Stadium, of course they get into play with a couple of damage counters on them. They only have 30 HP, but if we have 20 damage on them, it's fine. And this guy just deals a lot of damage. So if we have 3 Magikarp with 2 counters on each, that's 6 counters. So this attack does 100 and... Okay, so it's 6 times 3, 210 damage with full retaliation, if I'm counting right. That's really strong for just a DCE. Plus, we can also add muscle bands on the Gyarados and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be kind of fun. Of course, if they are playing bats or something like that, it's really scary, but I think this is a cool card anyways. Regis. There are 3 Regis. And only one of them I don't think is that strong, which is Regirock. Regis and Registeel I think are pretty interesting. All of them have attacks that hurt EX Pokemon. This one means that you prevent all effects of attacks, including damage onto this Pokemon by Pokemon EX. That means any Pokemon EX, so it's kind of like the Hippowdon's ability. Or attack effect, sorry. Ice Beam is also pretty interesting. I mean, you flip a coin, so you have a 50% chance of paralyzing, so if you get stuck in a position where you kind of have to use the first attack, you can do it. And keep in mind, this is a water Pokemon. I don't think the support for water Pokemon is great at the moment, but maybe this guy will find a home, or maybe it will have its own deck, I don't know. Unknown, so one of the best cards in the set in my opinion. It's a really cool support Pokemon. Wherever you need to play less than 60 cards in your deck, you should be running Unknown. You can just put it down, sacrifice it straight away and draw a card, unless it's active, so if you start with it, it kinda sucks. But other than that, it's perfect, especially if you're playing the Vespiquen deck, right? Definitely going to see play Unknown, I think. Golurk, I'm just putting this guy in here because it has an interesting ability in that it's both fighting and psychic type, and you can actually play strong energies on this too. That's kind of cool. And if you read its attack, it says 80 plus 40 and it deals 20 damage to itself, but it's resistant to fighting, so if I have my rulings right, I don't think it does damage to itself, so you can actually use superpower, unless it has fighting energy. Strong energy on it, which would mean that you increase the damage. I think you also hit yourself harder. I don't know, I don't remember the wording exactly, but yeah, I think it's a fun card. I don't really see it seeing a lot of play unless Theta Stop is really good. But other than that, yeah, it's an interesting card. Metagross, this is a stage 2, which already has a kinda not really considering that strong, because stage 2s are really hard to assemble, so they kind of have to have game-winning abilities or attacks, right? This guy has an ability which is basically, how should I put it, like an inverted escape rope, so you move your Pokemon first and then your opponent does the same, so you can force your opponent to switch out if you don't have a Pokemon, or you can switch out yourself, something like that. The attack is nothing to sneeze at. It's actually the focus on the card, because by discarding all the metal energy attached to this guy, so it's only 2 if you have a DCE in there, it deals 160 damage, no questions asked, so that's really, really good. It's a strong attack, I mean, but it's a stage 2 once again. I think the metal decks have better options, so I don't really see this guy being played except for cool or rogue decks or something like that. There's a Registeel, which I think is interesting and probably going to see play. I don't think this guy is better than the Regice, but I do think that metal support is really good right now. There's definitely metal decks being played at the moment, and after the rotation they don't really lose a lot. I guess they only lose Klinklang, and there's also metal decks without the Klinklang anyway, so yeah, I think Registeel is an interesting card. It's really easy to charge it up, and the second attack, Forbidden Hammer, does 70 damage, and if the opponent's Pokemon is a EX, you discard an energy attached to that Pokemon, so it's a really interesting attack. The first one, it's one of those attacks where you flip until you get tail, so not really the best thing ever. Whimsicott, another very interesting build around me Pokemon. So the first attack means you move all damage counters from one of your bench Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon. So maybe you use Wailord and you let Wailord take a lot of damage, and then you retreat into Whimsicott and you move all the damage into the opponent's Pokemon. Moving the damage, this is really good because it's a swing, right? You take the damage out of your Pokemon and into the opponent's Pokemon, and for just a single energy. It's not a very strong Pokemon, otherwise you definitely have to build around it, I think. Don't really know if there's room in the fairy deck for something like this. Maybe there is, and maybe, I don't know. Definitely want to try it out as well, because it's, if nothing else, it's a fun card. Porygon Z. The first attack, it's an attack, not an ability, which it's kind of bad, and plus it's a stage 2, but it does have Theta Stop going for it, and Digital Reboot kind of makes me want to build around it. You devolve as many of your bench Pokemon as many times as you like. That's kind of cool. That's an interesting effect. Definitely some room to build around this card. Okay, so we got to the EXs finally. There are some spicy ones, and we start with a very good EX Pokemon, Sceptile X. In the Sceptile deck, which I think will be a thing, I think this is actually one of the strongest pairings of EX, EX and Mega EX Pokemon in the set. Sceptile X has actually a lot of play to it. It's not only the Mega that is good. This guy, sometimes there will be games that you won't even play the Mega, and the reason for that is that Unseen Claw for just 2 energy, the 60 plus 70 if the opponent has a special condition. So if you have a Spinnerack, or Ariados, sorry, in play. You poison the opponent's Pokemon. You don't get poisoned because you are grass typed, and then you deal 60 plus 70 plus the 10 damage, so it's 140 damage. If you have a Muscle Band in there, that's 160. So that's pretty close. You don't have the Burbank City Gym anymore, but I don't know, maybe in Expanded it's a little bit better. Anyways, it does deal a lot of damage, and I think it's really cool, especially if the opponent is playing something that is weak to grass, and there's a lot of Pokemon that are. So yeah, Sceptile X, definitely cool. But let's look at the Mega Sceptile X. A lot of people also hype this card, I think a little bit too much. I kind of compare it to Manectric, or Mega Manectric, sorry. Definitely a good Pokemon, but nothing so broken that it's unbeatable, right? It has Theta Stop, this guy, so that's really cool and also really useful. You are not affected by opponent's abilities, but the attack is actually where it's at. So you deal 100 damage for just 2 energy, and you may attach 2 energy, grass energy from your hand to your bench Pokemon, and you heal all damage to the Pokemon that you attach to. So you can actually attach to 2 different Pokemons. That's a very neat thing. But you do have to have the energy in hand, and sometimes there will be times that you will not want to attach that energy. Plus, it's only 100 damage. I know it seems like a lot of damage for just 2 energy, but you won't be one hit KOing anything, and I think this format is still a 1-hit KO format with the Rayquazas of this world. So unless you're hitting for weakness, I don't think you'll be 1-hit KOing a lot of stuff. If it's a 2-hit knockout kind of format, I think this card is really good because it heals itself, so you kind of can string them into each other. So you can attack with a Sceptile, and then you retreat into another Sceptile, and you attack with a second one. So that's fun. It does have a 2 energy to retreat, and that's kind of a disappointment, but you can attach a couple of energy to the same Sceptile, so maybe you can have some recursion in there as well. I don't know. I definitely see this being a deck though, and it's one of the best EXs in the expansion. Kyurem EX, this card sucks, basically. It costs a lot of energy for its attacks, so Glaciate is basically the same as the old non-EX Outrage Kyurem. But Excalibur, I don't know, it's a really sucky Pokemon. If you have a nice way to charge this guy up, I guess it could be good, but I don't really see it as it is. Ampharos EX, not the greatest card ever. Can be interesting. I don't know. It does 100 damage, and it isn't affected by weakness or resistance or whatever. And the first one is actually what we want to be doing with this guy, especially because there's the Mega in the format. So you can look at the 4 top cards of your deck and attach the Lightning Energy to this Pokemon. So you can actually charge it up for Mega Ampharos EX. This guy also doesn't seem to be the greatest thing ever because of the energy types, the energy costs. What can you do with this guy that you cannot do with Mega Manectric? I guess you can Paralyze, and if you're playing the Vileplume deck where the opponent will not be able to play a switch, that's really good, but you have to get to 4 energy. So if you want to play a DC in here because the attack kind of asks for that, I don't think your deck can. Or maybe it can, I don't know. If you're playing a 2-type of energy deck, you definitely cannot play the DCs and the special lightning energy, I don't remember the name, in the same deck, but if it's only electric, I guess you can do that. And if you're playing Manectrics, I guess you don't really want too many of the special lightning energies. I don't know. I don't really see where this card would be better than Manectric, just because it costs too much to charge it up. But if you actually do, and if you have some way of locking your opponent out of items like the Vileplume, I think this could be a pretty interesting attacker. Upa EX, I think, is the best card in the set, actually, just because that Scoundrel Ring ability is insane. The attack, it's not great because you have to discard 2 energy, so it costs 3, and you snipe one of your opponent's Pokemon for 100. Nothing too bad, but I guess discarding a couple of Psychic Energy because there's no Psychic Acceleration aside from the Stadium, but that one's Colorless Energy, and we don't have any on Hyperspace Fury, but the ability is really good. You just grab 3 EX Pokemon from your deck and you reveal them and you put them into your hand, so that's insane, I think. Best card in the set if I would have to vote. Machan PX. A lot of hype around this card, and I don't think it's that good. I'm definitely going to be playing it with Gyarados. So you poison your opponent, you also get poisoned, but Crazy Hammer does 80 plus 80, and you remove all special conditions from this Pokemon, if this Pokemon has a special condition. So actually being poisoned is good, and it stops being poisoned, and it deals 160 plus the 10 from the poison, plus any strong energy that we have on this guy. So it actually can deal a lot of damage, but the fact that it just costs 3 energy to attack, I think it's going to be hard to get there. So I don't know. I'm definitely going to try to build a deck, but I don't know how good it will be. Rennet X, not the greatest, I think. It's kind of one of those EXs that's more just so that you can play the Mega, but Amarine, I guess 60 damage, 3 energy, not the greatest, nothing to write home about. And then Break Ground 130, no, it's not bad, and it deals 10 damage to each of your benched Pokemon, so that's definitely not great, but I don't know. If you don't have the Mega, I guess that's a passable attack. Mega Tyranitar EX, on the other hand, has been massively hyped, and Destroyer King does seem like the greatest attack ever. Does knock out something that already has damage on it, but it costs 4 energy, and this guy has Theta Double, the ancient trait, which means it will get headringered a lot. I mean, unless you're playing a lot of items in your deck and you play an item as soon as you evolve, so you kind of have to want to have the Spirit Link in there just so that it can evolve without losing the turn, and then you have to play the second tool straight away, or else you run the risk of having your opponent just making your attack cost 5 instead of 4, and that's just insane. Plus it does 1-hit KO stuff, but you kind of have to work hard for that. You kind of have to play, I don't know, bats or something like that, so you kind of have to evolve the bat before you actually manage to 1-hit KO. I don't know, that does seem a lot of them, like a lot of work for a 1-hit KO, which, I don't know, Mega Rayquaza does so easily. So yeah, I don't think this card is going to be great. Definitely fun. If you really like Tyranitar, play it by all means, but I don't think this card is going to see tournament play. I'd love this to be the dominating force in the format, because I think maybe it would be a little slower and maybe more fun. But yeah, I don't think this card, as things are, I don't think this is going to be good. Giratina X is another card that I think has too much hype around it. The ability, if your opponent's active Pokemon is a Mega Evolved Pokemon, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon. So, kind of seems really strong, right? It protects itself against Mega Pokemon. But all the Mega Pokemon decks kind of have a built-in answer to Giratina, which is not evolving the Pokemon. So, imagine that you're facing a Mega Tyranitar. The non-Mega does 130 for the same amount of energy that you do your 100. So yeah, I don't think this card is actually going to see a lot of play. Maybe as a one-off, something like that. Maybe in a dragon deck where you have a lot of double dragon energy. Yeah, the attack is really expensive. Even if you have a double dragons, so 2 double dragons. Remember, you're playing you have to play 2 special energies for that to be just a 2 energy drop attack. So I don't really think this is going to see a lot of play. I've seen people even talking about this card Giratina X with Vileplume, but all the lists that I've seen, and I've actually tried it out, they are just so terrible, man. If you compare that deck to, I don't know, Mega Rayquaza, Vespiquen deck, that's just insanity. Seriously, even a Metal deck, which is kind of slower, just I think is miles ahead of Giratina Vileplume. So I don't really see this card. Maybe there's something that I'm missing, but I don't think it's with a Vileplume deck that people are talking about. Definitely. Plus, if you are not item locking your opponent, Chaos will, 100 damage during your opponent's next turn. They can play tools, special energies, and stadium cards. So they can pretty much play anything else. This is nothing backbreaking. So it's kind of it kind of seems silly unless the opponent is that item locked. And even if they are, they can still play basic energy and Pokemon and supporters. So yeah. doesn't seem great. Lugia EX, this card is interesting. I don't think it will see massive amounts of play, but I do think it's going to see some. It's a colorless attacker, and that's it. If you are in search of a different resistant and weakness attacker, I definitely see people playing this. Arrow Ball is the same attack that Mewtwo EX have, but this guy does not hit for weakness on anything, whether it's another Lugia or not, so yeah, you kind of have to take that into account, but yeah, I can see it being played like a 1 or 2 off in some decks. Deep Hurricane is actually an interesting attack, because if there's a stadium card in play, and believe me, there will always be stadium cards in play most of the time, I guess, Deep Hurricane does 80 plus 70, so that's a lot of damage, especially with a Muscle Band on. You'll be 1-hit KOing a lot of EXs, and you discard a stadium card. So if imagine you're playing against a, I don't know, Groudon deck that can do something against Groudon. If you have, I don't know, might be paired with Ninetales now that I think of it. You get rid of the stadium, and then people can't play the stadiums back. But, well, I guess you can't also. Deep Hurricane also gets stuck, and you are not able to deal the 70 extra damage, but oh well. It's interesting. It's definitely going to see play like a 1 or 2 off, but it's, I don't think, something that you can just build a deck around. Okay, so as far as items go, I'm going to be looking at all of them except for reprints like Lysander and the Spirit Links, which are not really worth it, but other than that I think the items are really important, so I'm going to be looking at all of them. Ace Trainer. You can play this card only if you have more prize cards left than your opponent, and each player shuffles their hand into the deck and draws 6 cards. You draw 6 cards and your opponent draws 3 cards. So we are losing N, and I think it's really important to have catch-up cards. And this is one catch-up card, I guess. It's not as broken as N, obviously. In some situations it is better, but the fact that it's conditional, so you can only play this in certain positions, in certain board states, I guess, makes it a lot worse. So you can't run a straight out 4 of this guy. I'm not sure it's going to be played like in every deck. I wouldn't start with that really, but there are definitely some decks that want this, like Primal Groudon, for example. So if you know that you kind of have to tank for a little bit, and if and you're not a fast deck, after they kill the first Wobbuffet, you just like end them to 3 after just 1 knockout. I think that's really good, so definitely going to see play in some decks, I think, but I would guess not in all decks. Echo Arm, shuffle 3 Pokemon tool cards from your discard pile into your deck. Also interesting, especially if you have like a tool-centric deck. I can see that with all the Theta double Pokemon around. Also helps you get back the very annoying Team Flare tool, so I don't really know what else to make out of this card. Energy Recycler is really good. You shuffle 5 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your deck, so it's no Super Rod, like Sacred Ash is no Super Rod, but it's kind of like the Sacred Ash version for energy, so it's definitely good and definitely going to see play in some decks that want to reutilize the energy and don't mind shuffling into the deck. I guess Reason Genesect would love this card if that deck was still around after this one came out. Well, it still is around in Expanded, I guess, but I don't know if you want to play this over Super Rod. Maybe you do, I don't know. Faded Town. Anytime between turns, put 2 damage counters on each Mega Evolution Pokemon. So unless the opponent kind of has to evolve, I think it's really easy to play around this card. Especially there's going to be a lot of stadiums going around, so unless the opponent is I guess if the opponent is kind of playing like a Primal Groudon deck, this is good because they are not attacking you straight away, they are just tanking, and this does 20 damage, and that's really good, I guess, against Primal Groudon. But other than that, I don't really see it too much. So yeah, I might be seeing it wrong, but I think it's kind of situational and easy to play around. So yeah, I don't really know if that's what you want out of the stadium. Forest of Giant Plants. I think this card is really powerful, and it's definitely going to be seeing play one of the best cards in the set. I'm really interested to see what combos people come up with, because there's a lot of cards to look at, especially in Expanded. As far as Standard goes, of course, all the grass type decks want to play this, but I don't really know if there's going to be a lot of grass type decks except for the Sceptile. Maybe something with Vileplume really wants this to get it out as quickly as possible. As I said, you kind of don't, I don't know, you kind of want to play your own items before you play your Vileplume, so I don't know how good this will be in non Sceptile X decks, but yeah, it's definitely a powerful card. I'm just glad it's only grass Pokemon and not all Pokemon, or else this would be kind of brokenish, but I don't know. Forest of Giant Plants, definitely a card to look out for. Xmaniac, one of the best, if not the best supporter in this set. Really interesting card. I love it. It basically reads until the end of your opponent's next turn, so it's 2 turns, this turn and the next turn. Each Pokemon in play in each player's hand and each player's discard pile has no abilities. So you can actually play around this card by using all your abilities before you use it, so you're actually only locking out your opponents out. So this goes around a lot of stuff like, I don't know, Vileplume, for example. So as long as you have the Xmaniac, you will never be totally item locked 100%. I even think this card can see play in Expanded. I think it's a really interesting card, and I love that we're getting a lot of supporters that don't just draw cards. So we're getting nifty effects and really powerful effects. So yeah, I think this is definitely an interesting card. Really like it. Level Ball, it's a reprint. Love this card. I loved it when I first started playing. But at the time I was playing like the Aromatisse deck with Jirachi. And having Jirachi and having the ability to level ball for Jirachi is really something. I don't think it's going to be that great this time around. I am sorry to say. It does grab a lot of stuff from the Vespiquen deck, like pretty much all the Pokemon, but except for Shaymin, and I think that's actually what kind of makes Level Ball suboptimal. So because it doesn't grab the Pokemon that you want to draw a lot of cards, I think it's a little bit worse for that reason. So yeah, but I do see people playing like a couple of these in decks. So yeah, definitely a very interesting card. Lucky Helmet. This card, I think. First of all, let me tell you what it does. You attach it, and whenever the Pokemon that this card is attached to takes damage from opponent's attacks, you draw 2 cards. So if we are in a type of format where the opponent takes 2 attacks to kill your Pokemon, this is really good because you will be drawing 4 cards out of just a single item attachment. Otherwise, I don't think this card will see a lot of play, just because imagine if the opponent is one hit KOing you, so you're playing a tool on your Pokemon just to draw a card because you're essentially spending the tool slot and 1 card in your hand for 2 cards, so you already spent 1 card, which is the tool itself, and then you draw an extra. So it's kind of like, I don't know, you're kind of have to play a tool on your Pokemon that's going to take the damage just to draw a card. I don't think that's great. But if the opponent is not knocking you out in 1 attack, I think this card just gets a lot better. Just because it will draw you like 4 cards or more. So potentially good, we'll see how the format shapes. But definitely dependent on the decks that are played. Paint Roller, really interesting card with all the stadium wars going on. And actually there's a lot of decks that don't really want a stadium. But I can definitely see them play Paint Rollers just to get rid of stadiums. And you get a card out of it, so it's never a lost card in your hand, so you kind of get something out of it. And even, I don't know, in Vespiquen decks, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I actually think this card can see some play. And we'll talk when we start looking at decks from the new format. I don't know. I think it's interesting, definitely. So, cool item card. So we get to the energies finally, and there's 2 special energies in the set. Dangerous Energy kind of feels like it was mostly made for Mega Tyranitar. So if the Pokemon this card is attached to, it has to be, of course, a Darkness Pokemon. It follows the same things with all the special colored energies in the last sets. So you kind of have to attach to a Darkness Pokemon, and if they are damaged by opponent's EX Pokemon, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So it's kind of here for Tyranitar. So if they damage you, the following turn you one-hit KO them, no questions asked. Other than that, I think just the disadvantage of this being a special energy is not worth it. So if you're playing like an Yveltal deck or something, I would just stick to the basics and the double colorless energies. Flash Energy, on the other hand, you cannot use Manectric to get it back, because it's not a basic energy, but it is interesting. I can definitely see like any Lightning deck playing 3 of these, just to, especially if they are not playing the double colorless energies with Mega Manectric, because that would just be a lot of special energy in the same deck, I think, to get back. But anyways, this card, if it is attached to your Lightning Pokemon, it has no weakness, so definitely something useful if the fighting decks are still around. So that's pretty much it. That's the whole set, or at least the cards that I found interesting. Tell me what you guys think about it. Tell me if you agree or not, the usual, the good stuff, and see you guys next time. Bye!